The pacing in the scene works really well. Did it change from writing to eventual, scene in the movie? Did it get edited down, or was it pretty much?
That's the scene.
That's the scene.
I think the only change was the end. I think I may have gone out on a joke from Bernie, sort of a tit for tat kind of thing where he tells a white joke, and I'm not sure that it ends that way. In fact, I think it ends more dramatically, and I wasn't necessarily comfortable with that, but that's the only change that I can tell. It has a wonderful rhythm to it because everybody, it's built in and it's organic to the scene, which is wonderful in that you've got all these people that he has to sort of turn around, and they all turn one by one. So it builds beautifully,
yeah.
And then it just falls off the cliff when he goes too far,
How did audiences respond to it? Did black audiences have a different response than white audiences, or did everyone kind of respond to it the same way?
I think everybody enjoyed it equally. You always have to be careful with these kind of things because you sometimes have to worry that a white audience is laughing for the wrong reason, or members of that audience. I won't, tar a whole audience with that brush, but people go, "That was a funny joke, though, about the black people." That's not the point of the scene, my friend. You have that. The most interesting situation I ever had with that specific topic was years ago. I did a pilot with Dave Chappelle, and this is before Dave really...
Before the rebirth, kind of.
Before he really hit, I mean, he's a marvelously talented guy and a very sweet guy, but he hadn't really hit. We did a pilot, and we had a scene in it that we were adamant to do. We said, we must do this scene, which is that he's called a nigger. I mean, and it's by a black man. A black man, he goes to a friend's house, and they have dinner, and he pretends to be going to Bible college, and he says grace, and it's a disaster. And this older man just stares at him the whole time, and eventually gets up from the table, goes into the other room, and the friend says, "They like you. It's okay. It's no problem." And then you hear this man say, "I want that nigger out of my house." Okay, we thought it was really funny, and we said, "We've got to do it. We're gonna go for this." And we thought people are gonna love this, and we just laughed, and everybody loved it. But then we shot it, and the weird thing happened, and I can't say that it happened in Guess Who, it's a mixed audience. So instead of laughing, the white people look around to see if the black people are laughing. Can I laugh if they laugh? So they look, and the black people are looking at the white people going, "You better not laugh." And I don't know if I should laugh, because I'm not going to laugh and show them this is okay, that I can laugh about this. And it became generational, where the younger actors on the show would go, "Yeah, of course, nigger." It's not a loaded word, the same loaded word to them. The older actors, the actor playing the aunt and the uncle, said, "Well, yes, we say it, but we don't want to say it for the entertainment of a white audience." So it was this amazingly charged thing.
Well, that's interesting. There were so many different interpretations among the actors.
And there was no laugh, because everyone was doing this. There was a laugh, but it was nervous. And the rest of the people didn't laugh because they were too busy looking to see if they should laugh or not. So the scene in Guess Who, I think it was the darkened theater, and I don't think you knew exactly who. So I think it was probably a different situation. I think people were more free to laugh.
How did the actors react to the pages and the dialogue when you first kind of sprang it on the cast?
I think everybody recognized it was a very funny scene, and everybody got a kick out of it, so they enjoyed playing it.
Did you kind of try it out or test versions of it on people before it was committed to film?
The only thing I'll do sometimes is read it to my wife. She's the only person, and I'll say, "You got to hear this." If I think I've written something good, I'll say, "You've got to hear this," because I think it's funny.
Did it receive her endorsement?
It got her. Yeah, she's tough though. She's very tough, but she liked it.
Now, out of all your work, why did you pick this scene to talk about?
I have a very poor memory. That's the truth. Unfortunately, that's the truth.
So this was recent.
It was recent enough that I could remember it. I don't think the entire movie is successful, but I could remember that, and it's sort of, in some way, speaking of my film work, I could probably I could pick many more pieces of television work and say, well, this is stuff that I'm definitely proud of. But of my film work, at least I could say that scene. I could say, well, here I am, and I'm stirring the pot a little bit.
Well, it's a very instructive example of writing, because it was a tall order. It deals with sensitive issues.
Sure.
You set the tone for kind of his predicament in the movie. A lot happens in that one scene, and there's a lot of subtext and context and text going on.
Yeah, and not just it's also a comment on society as a whole. So it's got all that stuff going on. Not that people wanted society commented on when they go to the movies, but it's got that for me,
right.
At least,
There's a lot behind it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you've taken things away from your TV experience and brought them into your feature experience, although your story about your previous experience with the N-word, kind of, did you recall any of that when you were writing for Guess Who?
No, I didn't remember. Maybe I should have thought about that, but
maybe on a subliminal level.
Yeah, I thought it would be a different. I think more than anything, the stuff that I took away from the TV experience was just how to treat people and how to treat your crew and how to deal with people more than anything else.
Can you walk us through kind of the process once you get an idea of how you develop it, like what happens from inception to first draft?
Well, it's a lot of thinking. I mean, always for me, it's not much writing. I don't write things down. Like I said before, I have that file cabinet and I just start thinking. And, sometimes an idea, I can't say that I have a lot of ideas. I'm not a person who's tremendously fertile in terms of, oh, hey, this would be a good movie. I don't get that a lot. I'm so critical that I shoot down 95% of the things that I think of. I go, that would never work, or whatever. I'm a defeatist. I could have had a great career if it wasn't for me. I'm doing a movie this fall. It's a movie that I wrote that I'm going to direct, and it came from one of those moments of, boy, this would be a good movie, where I had to help a family member who was in some trouble, who was in Las Vegas. And at the moment when my wife said, you have to help this person, I thought to myself, hey, great, I get to go to Las Vegas. And I thought, now that's a movie. A person who has a gambling problem, which I have dealt with in the past, which I have, and have gotten help for, and not that it's worked.
Like a Bill Bennett-sized gambling problem, or a Mike DeLuca gambling problem?
I'm right up there with DeLuca, I
Okay.
guess. But I thought, hey, there's a great character, a guy who, in that situation, goes, hey, it's about me. I get to have a good time. So I thought, well, who's the guy? It can't be really me.
Do you have to do research trips to Las Vegas?
I thought about it, but I'd done enough in the past that I could draw on. But you think, you ask all the questions. Who's the guy? Well, it's based on me, but I'm a little boring, so I made him a little more interesting and gave him a recreational drug thing, and also he's a former alcoholic, so he's a real mess, this guy, And then I fabricated this person who he needs to help and what her situation is and why she's doing it. And you figure out, I always sort of need to know where I'm going to go at the end, and then I can...
Now, do you outline? Do you do a formal outline? Do you just start writing pages?
I just start writing pages. But once it's almost like a roadmap. You try and get checkpoints. You try and go, I like this scene. I know I need this scene. And that's going to fall roughly there. And then I know I'm going to go to here, and I know what the end is. And then you just fill in with the stuff that you need to do to get you to those places.
Right.
My wife will, come into the room, and I'm just sort of like sitting there like a lox. What are you doing? I'm working.
Are the checkpoints in your head as well?
All in my head.
Oh, okay.
And I'll do that with anything. I mean, with episodes of Sanders, famously in the 5th and 6th seasons when I wasn't producing the show, I would get calls on Friday from Gary saying, we don't have a show for Monday. And I remember I'd be driving, and I'd go, well, what do you got? And he goes, well, we got Hank buys a farm, and we got Artie does this, and Larry's doing this. And I go, okay, I don't like the Larry thing. What, you got another thing? And he'd go, yeah. And I'd go, okay. And I'd chop it up. I go, how many beats do I need to tell that story? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. I got 5 beats there. And then the Artie story I've got, and I can intersect those 2. And I've got this. Okay, I've got 17 beats. All right, that's 17 scenes. Go. Boom.
And this is all in the car?
All in the car.
Wow.
But I can chop them up to scenes. And then sometimes, I'll sit down and order those scenes out. Okay. And then flip to the top and just start writing. And then I'll just knock the scenes off one by one that's how I do the Rescue Me's now. Just figure it out, write down a very short list of what the scenes are, and then start over at the top and write them all out.
On the screenplay that you mentioned, once you have it in your mind about the checkpoints and everything, does it take what's your average kind of like time length to finish the script?
I hate to bring this up because it's bitten me in the ass in the past, but I've written movies in 5 days. I've written movies in a week. I wrote 3 movies in 21 days once, and several of them were big budget.
That must make you one of the studio's favorite go-to guys for, hey, we're shooting in a week, we have no script, can you help us out?
Here's the great thing about it. You don't want to tell people that.
Sure, no, I understand.
Because then they say, well, he didn't really work on this. He didn't give it his all.
But
believe me, I gave it my all.
But that is a separate skill set that I know studios, it appeals to studios.
Yeah, sure. I can write extremely quickly if I know what I'm doing. If you come to me and say, this is a mess, and I don't really know what to do with it, 9 times out of 10, I won't know either. But if I look at it and go, you know what you need to do? You need to, then I can write it really quickly.
Is the rewriting process easy for you? How do you know when you're done with a script?
You know, my interpretation of done is always different than a studio executive's or a director or whatever. I just have, in my head, I go, boy, that's the best way to tell that story. And then, you know, many times I'll disagree with what I have to do. So technically, I'm done at the point that I start to make these changes that I disagree with. I'm kind of going, well, I'm not really interested in this anymore.
Now, given your body of work and where you are in your career, does that happen less and less each time out? Where,
no.
No?
No, it happens. Because, you know, that's why I'm starting to direct, because I realized, just like when I was an actor and I said, well, I've got to write. Now I'm saying I've got to direct because I'm just tired of jumping that hurdle.
Right.
Of maybe and I've been lucky, but maybe dealing with a director who doesn't get it or has a different thing in his head after I've spent 1.5 years on a screenplay. Again, as a pragmatist, I go, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right. And
it doesn't make sense when you're writing a screenplay and the people you're writing it for, producers, whatever, are going, we love this. We love it. We love it. It's perfect. Here's the director. Now change it all. That doesn't make sense to me. What happened? What happened to we love it?
On both Guess Who, and I know you did some work on Fun with Dick and Jane, to a certain degree, is that the experience where you kind of do your thing and then you're kind of cycled out because of the director or the actor or the studio and then have to
in the case of Guess Who, I did a lot of rewriting. A lot of rewriting.
During production or before production?
All before production.
Oh, okay.
And at a certain point, I just got the sense that I was writing in a circle. That we were going, oh, let's try this. That there were communications issues between the studio, between the director, between the producers, that I just didn't want to get involved in. I saw the writing on the wall there, and I said, you know what? I'm so busy with this other thing, I can't do it.
You got out of Dodge in time.
And I dodged. Yeah. In the case of Fun with Dick and Jane, I never really worked on that movie, and I'm chagrined to find, you know, people asking me all the time, hey, we saw that, it was, you know, whatever they say.
Is it like an urban legend? Did you take a meeting on the project?
I took 3, and here's what they were. I was in Pasadena when I lived there at the time. I got a call at around 2 in the afternoon. Can you meet Barry Sonnenfeld at the Bel Air Hotel at 5:30? Okay. I got nothing else to do. I can, you know, it's 2 o'clock and I'll have enough time to get there. I never met Barry. So I go over. He's got a tape, a VHS of Fun with Dick and Jane. We're going to make Fun with Dick and Jane. Jim Carrey is attached. Are you interested? And I said, well, I'll watch it. And
had you seen it before?
Never seen it. Okay. It's awful, by the way. I can safely say.
It is famous, though, for the first on-screen peeing scene.
That is correct. Everybody talks about that. There's this wonderful bit of naturalism in the middle of this awful movie. And
Ed McMahon, in a rare acting stint, plays the villain.
That's right, yeah. So that was always weird, that there's this weird naturalistic moment of her taking a pee and wiping herself, you know, in the middle of what's just farcical, and there's no other beat that's connected to any kind of reality.
Very strange.
Oh, God.
Very strange moment.
Where do you think that came from?
I have no idea. I mean,
I was her.
I was in the, maybe.
She just said, I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, because now that's all it's remembered for. It's very strange.
That's all it deserves to be remembered, but it's really a lousy movie. So that was one of those cases where I thought, well, gee, my dog could do a better job on a rewrite of this. I mean, that's the time when you say, sure, we can remake this, because you had to make it better. Time is of the essence. We've got to turn this around. Jim has a window of only so much. Can you go to, and Barry's leaving that night. So I watch the movie, I say, yes, I can do better. Can you go to Long Island to Barry's house and break the story? Okay, I'll go. Fly to Long Island, go out there, drive out there, spend 3 days beating out the new story of this movie. Mike, 3 days. How good is it going to be?
Right.
Okay. Nevertheless, I fly back to LA. I go to see, I go to Sony, and I pitch it there. Now, I'm not going to exaggerate here. I'm stopped 4 times during the pitch. I'm a genius. I'm a genius. It's the best pitch they've heard in years. Direct quote, why can't you come and work at this studio and fix all of our movies? I walk out of there, I'm thinking, I call my wife and go, we're set. I don't know what's going to happen next, but it's only wonderful. I'm a genius. 24 hours later, I have to pitch it to Jim. I drive, I'm given the wrong address, first of all, by Barry's assistant. And I'm 20 minutes late.
That was just to test your tenacity. They did that on purpose.
Does he really want this?
Yeah.
Does he really want it?
He'll find Jim if he really wants it.
That's right. They say Malibu Canyon. It's Malibu Colony. So now, 20 minutes late, I'm in the door. So you know already, I've got sweat down my neck because I'm 20 minutes late.
Right.
I go, I do the same pitch. The next day or soon, it's the Belmont Stakes at Belmont. I get on a plane the next day. I fly to New York, I land, I'm fired.
You were too good. They can't have genius like yours walking around the lot.
Too good.
So is that a typical story?
No, but that's just a great story.
It's kind of the Hollywood experience condensed into one weekend. Amazing.
I mean, I went from a genius to you're fired in 24 hours. It was incredible.
Do you think that's symptomatic of when movies are crafted to meet a release date or meet an actor's availability without really an informing vision, kind of guiding the process through those waters, either with the studio, with the actor?
I think there were a number of things going on in that specific case. The screenwriter of choice for that project was turned down by the studio. And then they said, well, we'll now bring someone to you. That was me. So I think I was set up in that situation to fail, where they're going to go, well, we don't like him either, so now we can go back to our guy, which is eventually what happened. But there was also, I think what you're saying is true. I think the reason I was such a genius in that room is because it had only taken 3 days. They needed it desperately. There was a time thing. So the fact that I had anything ready made me the Einstein of pitches.
Do experiences like that, either past or present, is that kind of what drove you into directing? You mentioned a logical progression from actor to writer to director, at least more control over your own work.
I think I want to not have to endure that level of problem, not have to dodge that, run that hurdle of dealing with a director. If I can deal with myself, it's just a little easier. And I don't know, it's never going to be easy. We know that. But it's going to be that much easier by just putting myself a little closer to the end of the process.
Right. When you are writing, what do you spend the most time on? Do you find the story development, the locations, the structure, the dialogue? Like what's the most time-consuming element for you?
Time-consuming would have to be structure, because that's what I'm thinking about before I'm actually writing. That's really it. I'm trying to think, where's this going to go? Where's this fall? What can I do with that character? The writing part of it is the easy. That's when you're just sitting down and letting it all come out. And I don't really care about that. It's more just the structure of the thing, and then the dialogue is the actual, when actually writing, it's the dialogue that's the most important.
Do you think, in terms of comedy, do things get changed more in comedy during shooting than any other genre? Do you find that frustrating? Is that even true?
I think it is true, because unfortunately, comedy is subjective. I think much more subjective than dramatic work is. So everybody's got their own idea of what's funny. And I gotta say, there's alchemy involved in comedy, that and it's true for everything, but a little more in comedy, where, and another reason why I want to direct, I gotta be there. I gotta be there to see the person, see the actor performing it, because many times they'll bring something to it that's just fantastic, and I'm saddling them with something that maybe they shouldn't be doing. And if you're there, you can sort of take advantage of that alchemy a little bit more,
Can you walk us through kind of the building of a comedy sequence? Do you separate it out from the writing of the whole screenplay?
No, I don't. Mm-hmm. I tend not to want to write screenplays that have block comedy scenes in them. Even though I've given you an example of what technically is a block comedy scene, but it is a block comedy scene with people sitting around the table. That's the only way I get away with it.
Right.
I don't really think that way. I don't think about, whenever I get a lot of rewrites, have made a career out of being a script doctor for comedies. So people always say to me, what we really need is 2 more big block comedy scenes. And I turn off at that point, because I go, what's the story? And why? I don't understand why you think you can just jam one in.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
When you consider those kind of script doctoring jobs, how important is it for you to feel like there is at least a coherent set of questions coming from the people that want to hire you?
Oh, yeah.
Before you take the job?
That's got to be, they have to be able to tell me what the issue is. I'll read it.
Right.
And I'll be able to tell them what the issue is. But they've got to be able to tell me. They've got to say, here's what we want to do. Because, there's a lot of frustration in that in rewriting is who are you dealing with? Are you dealing with a director? That's helpful because then they definitely or hopefully have a vision of what they want to do. If you're dealing with producers, sometimes it's less that way because they don't have that same vision. So you don't get the same kind of help. Although I can't even say that because I've worked with some wonderful producers who are very insightful and have really been helpful, some really great people.
In terms of analyze this for an example, can you give us an example of a sequence that changed dramatically from inception to final product and what might have caused some of those changes?
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, so I barely remember the sequence of the things. I do remember one scene that did change was the very end of the movie. Billy's character goes to a meeting of the families, and he, and really this is Billy. This is all Billy. It's not me. I can't say that Harold or I wrote this scene, but when he goes in, he starts to nervously riff and to say to people, "Hey, how are you?" And when he sits at the table, he's ad-libbing all this stuff. And it's a very funny scene that we didn't write. And I think Billy felt as a performer, maybe as a writer, but as a performer, what would I do here? Well, how can I pop a little bit more in this? And, but that's the good thing about working with talented people and smart people, that they can help you out there. Because then people say, "Hey, you wrote that? That's good." You go, "Yeah, I wrote that."
So that was a case of kind of the right actor for the role, understanding the material and bringing something new during shooting to a sequence of the script that didn't have that particular set piece when you wrote it.
And I think Billy and I really spent a long time together in one section of the early part of developing what became Analyze This. Sitting in a room together, just ad-libbing and improvising with each other. A lot of the movie got written that way, so he was really involved. He didn't get any credit, but he was really involved in the writing and the structure of that movie. And then Harold came on and took it in a great other direction and actually made it work. So interestingly, Billy had been involved in the writing of the thing and then went back at the very end and went, "Wait, I think I can do better with this."
Oh, I see. And had you written it with him in mind?
Yep.
So I know you try very hard to stay sharp, and to help you, we have a screenwriting exercise for you.
Oh, good.
It involves Frederick and Frederick's tray, which is on its way over.
That's very good.
The way this works, it's very simple. There's an object chosen at random under there. I don't even know what it is. All right. It'll get revealed to you in a second. Your job is to assess it, make up a story about it, and then tell me what the story is. I'll ask you why you came up with that particular story.
Okay.
Ready?
Sure.
Show the man his object.
Your object, sir.
Oh. Okay, well, look at that. Can I just take it out?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Thank you, Frederick. Bring the car around. I'm just about ready to go. Well, it's some kind of a necklace, right? And it looks like some Greek kid or Roman kid.
I would chime in, but that would
Let's call him Steve. No. Well, I hate to be a hack, but doesn't this always kind of make you think of one of those Temple of Doom kind of movies, or like?
It is a little native.
I don't know. I do this as a unexpected kind of thing where I don't really write things about magical things that you'd put this on and you'd become like the mask or something like that. I wouldn't do that. So it would be, I don't know. Would be.
Would it be a treasure hunt movie?
It could be.
I'm cheating again. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking maybe it's one of those things where this isn't like this thing is supposedly like worth, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever is interesting to people these days, dollars. And there's a great, it's like a charade movie. Remember Charade, how great that was? That it's one of those where everyone's like, "Oh, this is the thing. You've got to get this thing." And there's a series of characters who are cravenly after this thing. But it turns out actually that it's the rope. That inside this rope, there's some filament or something that's worth even much more than that. And they, at the end of the movie, the guy tears this off and disappears and of course gets killed by a boulder or something, and our hero is left with just this and cursing himself and throws it down on the ground and walks away, and something happens and he goes, oh my God, this is the thing. I always like those kind of movies. Like
something
Charade.
nicely ironic, something comic.
Like Charade where it's the stamps.
Right. Or Mad, 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 Mad World where it's
right
under the big W, which are the palm trees.
Yeah, that doesn't satisfy me. That movie doesn't at the end
it's
of
like
that.
18 hours long. You have to,
Oh,
by the
yeah.
time you get to the end, you can't laugh anymore because you're asleep.
Movies with thousands of comedians never work. The Brits try to do it all the time, and it never works. But I sort of do that, the ironic thing where you're after this thing the whole time, but it turns out to be this thing. That's the important thing.
I think that's a fine approach to that.
Thank
Lovely
you.
necklace.
As a comedy, I don't know, but I would do it as, I would do it like Charade, which had some elements of comedy in it.